Welcome back to another episode of Thinking That Matters. I'm Elizabeth Mahusay, your show host, and I'm here again with Lisa Hammett. And we are in a series on leadership habits and how folks can develop habit stacks, as we were referencing them. All right, so the quick review for the audience. If you did not listen to part 1, you are going to want to check that out. We actually talked about the value of how we start our day well. Actually, even before that, you gave the definition of what is a habit. So repeat that for the listener who maybe has not heard part 1.
Okay, real quick. Habit is 3 components. There's the cue or the trigger that reminds you to do the desired behavior. And then there is the behavior that you desire to do. And then there's the reward, which will motivate you to come back and do that. And also, there is between the cue and the behavior that you want to do, there should be a motivating component there as well to get you started. So you need a motivation on the front end and a motivation on the back end.
On the back end. And that's ultimately what helps to make ideally cyclical.
Yes.
Where you're repeating said cue, trigger, behavior, reward multiple times. And we also established that it's not a set 21 days to do a habit, to form a habit. It could be very different for different people.
Yes.
And that is absolutely hands down true. It also makes me think that as we launch in today, with knowing that the importance of recognizing it's not the same for everyone, we must guard ourselves from comparing our habit development to others' habit development.
Oh, that is so critical because it goes back to where people develop at different ways. And that does not mean that you're better or they're better. It just means that you process things differently. And comparison, as I'm sure you've heard a million times, is the thief of joy. And when you compare to other people, you are self-inflicting yourself with these negative thought patterns. And the more you do it, you actually develop those neural pathways. So in essence, you're forming dysfunctional brain habits, which can completely destroy your productivity, your well-being.
The culture of your business.
Yes, how you communicate with others.
Because we're talking to leaders here, and something that came to me even as we were just having this brief exchange, I'm like, how many leaders have their own experience of habit development and they expect that everybody else should be able to do it like them? Should be able to pick it up as quickly as them, should be able to repeat it as accurately and as efficiently and as effectively as they did. And that does not work.
It does not work. You know, you have to focus on the different learning styles and communication styles with that individual team member. And we react differently. Some people are more visual learners. Some are more auditory learners. So it just depends. And then there goes into that tendency of, okay, they're not performing as well. So I'm going to really be challenging to them and say, well, why aren't you? This is the way it is, and you do this, and you will get this done. But what that does is that just depletes any positive mindset that team member would have. And then it prevents them from seeing clearly and moving forward.
Yes, because once the brain really moves into that more reptilian space, and I call it the brain shutdown. It's like the brain starts shutting down. And think of, we're old enough to have been in when computers weren't a thing and they became a thing. And, even now with how robust computers are, eventually, if you're not closing out tabs, if you're not rebooting your computer, eventually you will begin to run out of resources and things don't operate at peak performance. The same is true in our brain.
100%.
And if I've got, the voice of my boss who's constantly, after me about you're not doing it fast enough, good enough, without and not taking into account those other factors, it can really hinder my ability to grow in the way that I'm capable of growing.
100%. And, we absorb all of this, and the majority of our thoughts are negative throughout the day. I mean, I use the statistic that I use, and I know it kind of varies a little bit depending upon who you're reading it from, but roughly we have 70,000 thoughts a day.
I was going to say mine's usually between 65 and so I'm
it's
right
in
there.
that range. Roughly 70,000 thoughts a day. The majority of those are on repeat.
That's correct.
And they're in our subconscious, and we don't realize that we're even having them. And it takes a lot of intentional thought and work to be able to recognize that they are there. And of those 70,000 thoughts, 80% of those are negative. So it's a wonder that we can even have a positive thought some days. I mean, seriously.
Well, and we're bombarded now between our phone. If you turn the radio on, for anybody that does that still, or cable television, or YouTube, or whatever it is. I mean, negativity sells or captures attention. So we are bombarded with these negative messages. So in episode 1 of this series, we talked about starting one's day well. We addressed the non-example or a bad example, and we gave some key ways in which someone could start their day well. And so we would encourage you, go back and listen to those. Today we're focusing on, and you really have already said, you led us into it really well, what are we doing throughout the day? Mm-hmm. So how can we, throughout our day, habit stack in ways that serve the leader well, or to serve us in our leadership well? Now, one thing that you talked about in episode 1 was, like, for example, during your walk in the morning, you're listening to different sounds. And then there was another time where you said during the day, you might rub your fingers together, or we call those your PQ reps.
Yes.
And you explained a little bit about it in the first episode. Take that and maybe give us a quick review and build on it with some examples of during the day, what are ways that we can attach something to an existing habit? And then I'll add in too.
Great. So we go throughout the day and we have stressors. We have things that are thrown at us all the time, negative influencers, what have you. And we need to reset. And those thought disruptors that we had talked about before, we really need to be focused on that. And really think of your brain as a dry erase board. And imagine that as you go throughout your day and all this garbage and stressors get thrown at you, imagine that dry erase board is just filled with all these black scribbles. It's just, you can barely see the white on it. But then once you start doing these PQ reps, which stand for positive quotient, and they're in essence a micro meditation that engages your senses, and you can attach them to things that you already do. Imagine that you're taking an eraser and you're erasing a line of that scribble. And the more that you do these, especially in conjunction, and I'm not saying you have to do these for hours on end. They're really 10 to 15 seconds.
Right.
But when you do that, you're starting to scrub your brain clean, because it takes the focus off of those negative emotions and clears your brain so that you can focus on whatever is swirling at that moment and can look at it with clear-headed, laser focus. So some of the things that you could do is, like, when you go to the bathroom, watch washing your hands. Notice how the temperature of the water feels, and when you're drying your hands. Or I had one individual say every time I would reach for a doorknob, I would just really notice, what's the temperature of it? What does it feel like? Or is it a bar? Or, just little things like that, things that you already do. And I love the hearing because that's so easy to do, especially if you are in an environment with a lot of other people and you have to kind of refocus in the moment and just let those stressors dissipate. And it's not like you can go into a room and say, excuse me, I'm going to go do some yoga stretches, in the other room or meditate, and I'm not saying those are bad practices. They're great, but they're not realistic in the heat of the moment when you're in a busy workplace. So then it's listening to all those different sounds and just taking a few minutes, people typing, voices. Even if it's quiet, it could be the sound of your breath, the sound of your shoes, people opening a can of soda or what have you. So it's little things. So think about the things that you do throughout your day. If you are drinking a cup of coffee or you're eating something, really notice the flavor of the food, the flavor profiles or the texture of it or the colors of it. Or I love coffee, the warmth of the cup or the mug, the aroma, the flavor. It's these little things that we often take for granted, but they're taking the focus off of all that negative mind trash.
And what's so important about that, just to put that in, as I love your visual of the whiteboard and the black scribbles, and that by doing a PQ rep, that's a disruptor.
Yes.
And so the PQ, in a PQ rep, it's focusing sensory. It's a sensory focus. Yes. You could also have a disruptor, for example, in something that you say. You mentioned that when someone they wake up, they could verbally say, stop, 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 and then you visualize the stop sign. That's for example, a way in which you can disrupt a pattern of thinking. And you said it's like erasing the squiggles. So cleaning the brain. So from a standpoint of the brain, the conscious mind has limited capacity for processing, whereas the subconscious mind has massive capacity for ongoing processing that we're not even aware of. So what happens is when we allow all of those squiggles to remain on the whiteboard, it becomes very overwhelming when new stimuli or new information or new stressors make their way on there, and we're thinking, I can't see clearly. Mm-hmm. And so I love that visual that you gave of it's like being able to erase some of that whiteboard, to give yourself some, wait for it, white space.
Yes.
And by having some of that white space, it allows your brain, your conscious mind to have more resources to commit to whatever is in front of us.
Yes.
It's a very powerful visual, and it's also the reality of what most people are unaware of. For example, why is it that we get overwhelmed? Because the conscious mind is overrun. It's got too much going on. It can no longer, it doesn't have enough RAM in the old style computers, So I think that's such a great way to share where that's concerned. I would add just a couple, thinking about your sensory PQs, that I find, it's like, I'll use the word overwhelm, and you can share if you have one in particular. When I feel overwhelmed, I personally like to, if I'm in a work environment and I need to remain productive, I will audibly, because I work from home, I'll audibly say to myself, focus, Elizabeth, focus. I use that word, focus. And that, it just helps whatever is competing for my mental process right then, it allows me to zero back in. So that's one thing that I do. And then in other cases, I might quote a passage of scripture that helps to disrupt and to get my brain thinking on a better pattern of thought. And that I also find really helpful. Any others that you really like?
I like adding the word yet to thoughts that are generating a lot of that negative mind trash. Like, I'm not doing this fast enough, or, oh gosh, I shouldn't have done that, or, whatever the garbage that we tell ourselves. And an example would be, oh man, I shouldn't have done that. Okay. What should you have done? What have you not done yet? And taking it really a step further, well, I can't do that. I don't have that knowledge. I can't do that yet.
Mm-hmm.
Or this isn't in my wheelhouse yet. So things like that is putting a yet to the end of the statement, and it forces your brain to go to a positive, because you can't simultaneously think a negative and a positive thought at the same time. Your brain just does not operate that way. So you're forcing your brain into
a more positive energy state, for sure.
Exactly.
I love that. I just want to label it, what I heard you just now doing. And I think and I'm going to challenge our listeners as well and viewers, we need to ask ourselves more questions.
Yes.
What am I doing? What could I be doing? Mm-hmm. What would I need to do? I mean, I just get even real basic with myself, like, Elizabeth, how is this serving you right now? Mm-hmm. Or is this really helping you or hurting you? Mm-hmm. Like, sometimes I just need to, kick my own self out of the poor thought pattern that I'm in, just by asking, is this helping or hurting? Mm-hmm. Right. And I love also your suggestion of adding the word yet to it. I think yet is one of those words where it can pull us out of a fixed mindset and into more of a growth mindset.
Yes.
Where in a fixed mindset, it's impossible. In the growth mindset, we're at least willing to explore what's possible.
Right.
And that is an incredibly powerful shift. So one thing I'm hearing is that throughout the day, so PQ reps are one way to disrupt the brain. What we say is another way to disrupt the brain. The asking ourselves questions is a way to disrupt what's going on. Let's now get to some specifics that we've seen either in leaders that we've worked with or that we've done ourselves of how we habit stack during the day, specifically to keep ourselves on track or to help our clients keep themselves on track. I'll let you go first.
There's so many good examples for this.
Okay, can I give one?
Yes.
It just came to my mind that I think is people violate so much. I'm going to say it that way, because I do mean for it to be. I had gotten into a habit where I was working through lunch. And what I started observing is because I was eating and working, that my productivity in the afternoon would decline more rapidly. Mm-hmm. So one thing that I've chosen to do is I actually created the habit of taking a lunch.
That's huge.
I put it in my ideal schedule. I block it on my calendar. I come down from my office. I make lunch and I sit at the table and I do something other than work.
And that's great. Because you're getting out of that environment. And oftentimes when we are overwhelmed or stressed, it's because of the immediate environment that we're in. And it could just be as simple as just walking outside for a minute.
Yes.
It doesn't even have to be like an official lunch break or anything. All you're doing is you're just stepping outside. You're physically moving your body into a different environment.
Yes, I love that.
And that can make a big difference. I mean, it could even be the bathroom.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, oh gosh, I have to get in my car and I have to go here and do all that. No, you're overthinking. But just physically move to a different space.
I love that. Yes, agreed. And that is, there's been so much more talk about grounding and things like that. I think there's something to be said for just going out and spending 5 minutes in the sun.
Yes.
Like getting some vitamin D, being aware. And interesting, thinking about what you just said, when you build in, for example, walking outside, something that I hadn't even thought about it as a PQ, but it is. So when I'm out there, I try to be aware of how the sun feels on my skin.
Yes.
Right? Is it just warm or does it feel prickly? Like, so those are things that I'm trying to be aware of when I'm out in the sun.
Yes.
So that, I think that's why those PQ reps that you're talking about, the beautiful thing about those is wherever you are, you can engage in them.
Oh, absolutely. If you're sitting at your desk and you're typing on the keyboard, notice the sound of your fingers on the keyboard.
Yes, those of us with nails,
Yes.
you know, if that, depending on
Just
how long they
notice
are,
that.
right?
Just notice that. Or I love the color one too. Just pause for a moment and try to find one particular color and how many times do you repeat it?
Oh my goodness. So before anybody knew anything about PQ, I'm thinking about all of those 9-hour, 10-hour, 12-hour drives where the parents would be like, I spy with my little eye something, fill in the blank, right? Or when you're looking for different state license plates. I mean, literally, I feel like my head could explode right now. Like, we were engaging in PQ all the way back then. We were disrupting the brain thinking, are we there yet? Are we there yet?
Yes.
Are we there yet? Are we there? This is boring.
I'm bored.
It's
I'm so
long.
bored.
Oh my goodness. I'm going to take it. So what do? We disrupt the brain. Oh my word. Like, it just hit me as you were talking. I was like, I spy with my little eye. Something green, you know?
Yes.
That is so, but for the leader listening, how could you implement that into your work environment to assist your people in just having greater awareness and attentiveness and which is going to lead to more productivity in the long run? You're doing a lot of work these days in the HR space. Specifically, I know a lot in healthcare. How do you see this part of our conversation being of benefit in those environments, those leaders that you're training and speaking to?
It is life-changing because the challenge now, especially in the healthcare industry, is a lot of it is based on, and I don't want to use the overused term, a toxic work culture, but it's dysfunctional in some regard. And a lot of that is due to all the changes that are occurring in, processes, what have you. But the expectations often have become so unrealistic. And oftentimes when we're fighting against an environment like that, that just isn't promoting well-being in any way, we have to be so careful about how we emotionally regulate in situations. Because when we can't regulate ourselves, it's easier to then just lash out at somebody and say the wrong thing or be kind of short or curt with a patient or not helpful with somebody else. And these things can be so helpful. You just don't think about it. But the breath, for example, we didn't even talk about the breath.
Well, let's talk about it.
But in environments especially that can create fight or flight, like I had a conversation actually on LinkedIn with a nurse who was an ER nurse, basically, in critical care. So she would see gunshot wounds, stabbings, all kinds of just horrible thing. And if any of the viewers here or listeners have seen the show The Pit on HBO.
Okay.
It's pretty realistic in a lot of ways. It's not perfect, but to what people in an ER deal with and the constant stressors. And if you are not emotionally regulated, then everything just snowballs. Because you, especially if you're a nurse leader, for example, you have to remain calm because your demeanor, your emotions could influence the emotions of somebody else.
Yes.
So going back to the breath quickly is when our bodies go into fight or flight mode, which is what occurs when our nervous system gets dysregulated, we feel, maybe we'll tremor, we might get kind of clammy, our hearts will palpitations will escalate. We might even stutter a little bit. Our brains are just firing in so many different directions. The quickest way to regulate your central nervous system is to force yourself to take slow, deep breaths.
Yes.
And exactly. And you don't have to go into a bathroom to do it. You can just
right there.
Breathe in deeply through your nose and then exhale slowly through your mouth. Force yourself to do that 5 or 6 times. You are automatically going to lower your heart rate, which will then start to reset your central nervous system. So these tools are so important. I mean, there are people who will be watching this who are going to argue, well, the system is totally dysfunctional. These things don't really help. No, they do. They help with emotional regulation, and it is so important in crisis environments because our behavior can influence the behavior of others.
So I want to bring us back to, as we round out this episode, a habit is formed. There's a cue, there's a trigger, okay? There needs to be some motivating factor for behavior. And then as a result of the behavior, there's a reward. I'm thinking about during the course of our day, we need to be aware of what could trigger us, say, for example, in a downward negative spiral, and allow that, determine what is the motivator to have the behavior of, for example, deep breathing, and then what is the reward out of that? Like, I know for me, deep breathing, the reward is that I am able to regulate my emotion. Like, that is a reward enough for me. Like, I can stay focused. I don't spiral out. And that is in a sense a reward because I love productivity. I love achieving, but it is about building habits into recognizing where do we need to have the PQ rep? Where do we need to work on our breath? And really determining what is the reward for that. And I think sometimes the reward is just our overall well-being. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It also brings more mental clarity. It's that power of pause. I mean, you've heard that probably a million times. When you take a pause, and the pause could be the breath. When you take that power of pause, you allow your brain to catch up. That's like in speakers, for example. We know if we're talking and we have a thought, then that pause could be, great question.
I know, I love it. Exactly. And we've done it even on this podcast.
We have done it on this. Oh, that's such there's so many.
And then it's like your pause helped my brain to go, oh, I've got an example. And so, I mean, we're like living it out real time on this actual episode. I love it. I love it. But hey, we are practitioners of the things that we teach.
Yes, we are. We are.
I love it. But it is so incredibly powerful. Okay, so to round out this episode, the first part of this series was on how we start the day, like laying the foundation for habits, how we start the day. Today we focused on what are we doing during the course of the day and how can we build in and cultivate habits that help us. And we really got to this place of that self-regulation.
Yes.
And the value of that in our day-to-day lives and how it also helps us to, I think for leaders especially, they need the mental space to more clearly see what is really going on and then to be more measured, for example, in their words or their response. And that's why the habit stacking is so critical for the leader because they're setting the tone.
Yes.
For the entire organization.
Right. People can model their behavior. Absolutely.
And they're also absorbing that, for example, if it's negative energy, their people are absorbing that negative energy. If it's positive energy, their people are absorbing that positive energy. And it can make or break
100%.
who you attract, your retention,
Yes.
the overall, just that, how do people feel about
Yes.
being at work, coming to work? So many. It
I mean, your
impacts-
culture overall.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So many factors. Oh my goodness. I absolutely, I love it. So tell them what this is leading up to, Lisa.
Oh gosh. So
I'm getting more excited
I'm
with each
so
episode.
excited. I cannot wait. So in September, Elizabeth and I are going to be collaborating on an educational event. You will get all the details very soon. But a lot of the things of what we touched upon today, we'll be going into greater depth.
Yes.
And the cool thing about it is we will allow the participants to have breakout sessions where they can practice a lot of the things that we have shared and then take it even deeper so that they can start to form those habits and really understand how to apply them to their work and life.
Oh my goodness, it's going to be so exciting. So be sure to check out the show notes. We'll have all of the details in the show notes for the episodes, and we'll go back and add them depending on the timing of all of that. Well, okay, I'm loving it. I can't wait for the next episode. So for you watching, listening, you want to tune in for episode 3, where we are going to talk about how to end your day well in this overall process of habit stacking. So thank you so much. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast, leave a comment, let us know what impacted you from the conversation today, what your challenge to implement, and we will look forward to seeing you back here for another episode of Thinking That Matters.